Let me give you an example of two other ways to deal with an inflation, other than raising interest rates. Number one, the path chosen by a conservative Republican president, Richard Nixon, on the 15th of August, 1971. He's the president. He goes on radio and TV and he says, we have a terrible inflation, 10, 11% already, I think, by that time. We have to do something, and I'm going to do it. As of tomorrow morning, 8 o'clock, any business, any employer who raises a price on anything will be arrested, and we're going to put him in jail. President, conservative, tricky Dick Nixon. Any worker or union that pushes the wage up, same story. That's why it was called a wage price freeze, because that's what the government was doing. Worked like a charm. It was originally set for 3 months. It was extended more than once, twice, I think. Why? Because it stopped the inflation. Now, businesses hated it because it took away the freedom of a free enterprise to set whatever price it can get. Yeah, that's what it did. That's how it solved the problem. Well, I'm not suggesting that there aren't problems with wage price freeze. There are. There are problems with raising interest rates. There are problems with every solution. Talking about the fact that it had problems is saying nothing. But we didn't even do that. We had no major politician, not in the Federal Reserve, not in the Republican Party, and not in the Democratic Party, say one word about what was done the last time we had a fast inflation that frightened us by a conservative Republican. Amazing. That's called ideological spin on a level that ought to frighten you. Here's the second example. It's early 1940s. The United States is getting ready to enter World War II. So it's moving all of its railroad and storage and factories to stop producing consumer goods the way they once did, the American people, but instead produce for the war. Uniforms, guns, bullets, planes, ships, all of that. And President Roosevelt calls in the economists and said, this is what we have to do to fight the war. Is this a problem? One of them, John Kenneth Galbraith, who later became my teacher, which is why I know this story, he's an advisor to the president. He goes to the president and he says, yeah, you're going to have a doozy of an inflation. Why, says the president? Well, everybody in America who wants to consume is going to keep wanting to consume. But you're saying that the supply of consumer goods is going to drop like a stone because we're producing for war instead of for the public, or at least a large part of what we used to produce for public consumption is now going to be made for the military. And if you let the market work, here's what's going to happen. There's going to be a shortage of, I'll pick something, ice cream. Okay, what's going to happen is the poor man and wife are coming with their kids to the park and they want to buy ice cream cones for their kids. The rich man and his wife are coming. They want to buy ice cream cones for their kids. But there are not enough cones because a lot of the production is for war. So the rich man says, I'll give you $2 more per cone. The poor man hurt. So, okay, I want for my kid. Oh, I'll give you $4. In other words, prices will get bid up by the rich, who will walk away with the scarce consumer goods. And Kenneth Galbraith, who called himself a socialist in those days, he dropped that later. Anyway, Galbraith says to President Roosevelt, you want to fight a war with a weakened home base? You want poor people to be bitterly angry that they're frozen out while rich people can get the ice cream for their kids? You want that? I don't think so. So you better not let the market do its job. You better not let prices get bid up by those who can afford it when there's a sacrifice we're all supposed to make. Roosevelt agreed. So guess what happened? They said from now on, for the following list of commodities, we're not going to allow the price mechanism to work. We're going to say, if you have money to buy the following items, and I'll give you a list in a minute, Doesn't matter. We're going to say to an employer, if you sell any of these items to a person for money, we're going to arrest you. You can only sell them if the person has a ration card or a ration ticket. The government printed and distributed in America ration cards. And you know how they did it? If you had a large family, a lot of kids, you got a lot of cards for milk. That was one of the items. And if you were an elderly couple whose kids had grown up and left, you got very few milk tickets. Milk, sugar, coffee, gasoline, meat, I could go on. We're all rationed in America. That's how you avoided an inflation. And guess what you could do to inflation now? The exact same thing. Not a word. This little history I gave you just now, not a word. Whether
sounds very anti-capitalist of them.
Yes, and the irony is, of course, that raising interest rates is as discriminatory as the inflation. When prices go up, it's worse for the poor, for the middle class. The rich don't care if it costs another 10, 20, 30%. That's what it means to be rich. And to raise interest rates, the same thing. It's just raising another price. In this case, the price of money, of borrowing money. So again, it discriminates against the middle and the poor. You keep doing this to the working class. Don't be surprised if you begin to get deeper and deeper rumblings of we're not taking this anymore. We're not going to allow you to do this. Yeah, he stopped the railway workers from striking, but I am amazed across the spectrum of American labor, including very conservative building trades and others. They are very angry at Mr. Biden. That's going to cost the Democratic Party. There's a whole change in attitude as they begin to see that President Biden is former Senator Biden, who comes from the state of Delaware, which is the home of most American corporations, because it is one of the most corporate-friendly states, et cetera, et cetera. It's not that they didn't know this before, but they're drawing the conclusions. And again, as I see beginnings of coalition between political movements and the labor movement, as they recognize that they need each other, that they recognize that they share the desire for pretty big changes, people like me are hopeful in a way we haven't been for a while. And let me tell you, it's a good place to be.